I don't really need to learn to play this yet. I'm aware of how many mistakes I'm making. You don't need to worry about it if you're already furiously typing in the comments. I have blue gloves. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing? I wanted to talk to you today about how's it going in World of Warcraft, because it has been the biggest question that you've been hitting me through emails, Twitter, live stream, Discord, everywhere you have contacts. You've been hitting me this thing with World of Warcraft Retail, World of Warcraft Classic, and of course those of you coming to my stream have seen we haven't been streaming World of Warcraft Classic the last few days. In fact, we've been playing Link's Awakening. And then assuming, of course, that there must be some issue with World of Warcraft Classic. So let's clear all that up. I actually recorded this as a TDP. You can see it in the background, but the audio did get screwed up, unfortunately. But for full disclosure, terrible play. The Shadow Priest, as many of you know, is what I've picked up as my alt for my guild. We do alt raids, and they've been very kind in giving us like 8 weeks to sort these characters out pretty much. But it's been tough. Even the bare minimum that I've been asked to do with the Shadow Priest has been an absolute chore in BFA, and I can't deny it. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it or anything like that. It's been a nightmare, and I've tried to minimize my playtime with it as much as possible, which is why you'll see some god-awful blue-geared Shadow Priest gameplay in the background. In that video, for full disclosure, I was even bitching about lack of Mind Seer procs while not using Vampiric Touch. I have put very little time into this character, other than getting the basics done. So that's kind of what I wanted to go through, because there are a few of you who in similar situations. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Classic, and then of course BlizzCon, which is coming up, and we did that top 5 this week regarding that. So first of all, how am I minimizing this? Well, gear in BFA is a meaningless sort of factor to the character. Like, getting the character gear in order to do damage is like the least concern of mine out of all the things I need to get done with this. When it came to basically using a fresh character, I chose the Shadow Priest to benefit my guild, who wanted cloth wearers, you know, because this character is purely to trade gear during the next raid tier, and they wanted a cloth wearer. When it comes to what I need to do to be effective, I need to get AP level 65, I need to have my 3 BIS essences, and I need to have gear in order to actually do damage. When it comes to those factors, gear is like the least thing. That's like a week's worth of play at best. A few Mythic Pluses, a run through a raid, and it's done. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. We'll have most of the good stuff that we need probably from just that. So I don't need to worry about that. The real chore, and the thing that has obviously turned a lot of people off of BFA entirely, certainly in comparison to playing Classic or simply playing other games, has been the grind for essences and AP. Now, Artifact Knowledge is still rising, which means AP isn't that big of a hurdle. It's really not. The problem is the stuff you do to get it is still the same stuff that we did at the beginning of the game that we complained about in like week 1. Like we complained about during the beta. We complained about before BFA even came out. And therefore that has been a real struggle, even leaving it. And what I've decided to do is leave it like 3 days, log in, that's 3 emissaries worth of stuff, islands, and do 1 Mythic Plus a week, which is a guild requirement in order to gain Residium and things like that. And of course, the Benthic Lottery, which is something that affects my Shadow Priest, have all been stuff I've left like every 3 days. Log in, get like a full big chunk, and then just leave it alone. So it's a couple of hours it's a couple of hours every 3 days to try and catch up. But even that, considering I'm not actually doing anything, is it really shines a light on these problems, because that's a couple of hours every 3 days. The bias is there because I don't want to do it in the first place, because the activities I'm doing on the character are not fun. They're not interesting to me at all. So it's like, I'm not logging in to just gear up a character. I'm logging in to get the foundations of a character that can eventually get some gear, which will be the really minor part of this process. And then I can actually play it to a reasonable standard that, you know, is useful to the raid in some way. And to say it shines a light on like all the issues BFA with class development and class progression is it's just logging in and doing dailies. That's it. It's logging in like every 3 days to just do daily content. Now, I know some of you really like daily content, and that's fine. But for other of us who really dislike that as being a required factor of the game, it's been an absolute chore. So far, I've maintained it mostly, I'll be honest with you. There have been some times I've left it like 4 days, 5 days. I've just ignored it. Like, this is right now Tuesday. It's late at night, and I'm just getting my Mythic Plus done. And my guild is working hard, as I know many of your guilds have died. Actually, an officer contacted me saying, we're putting Mythic Pluses together for people who haven't done their weeklies this week, because they can track it. So if you want to get them done, you know, you can log on and do it. Because they're doing their best to be gentle about it and try and keep everybody going in the pace they want to get going in order for the next raid tier without being too pushy about it. And I was very thankful for that because I did realize it was Tuesday. I've been working on everything else. I'm working on a big video right now. It's not quite finished. I was hoping to get finished tonight, but it's like, you need to get this done now because it resets tomorrow. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. Let's get it done for the sake of the guild and making sure that we have a cohesive team when the new raid tier comes, which I will want to do. Okay, we'll get this done. So that's where I'm at with retail World of Warcraft right now, is kind of being as gentle and as tender as possible with my playtime as to not be too interfering with it. When it comes to Classic, I'm so in love with Classic right now, it's ridiculous. But the fix is I'm still leveling. I'm like 54 or 53, something like that. And I don't like streaming my leveling. One, I don't think it's a particularly great viewing experience to just be leveling all the time. And one, I'm very, very interactive with my chat. I don't like pre-plan groups and like, I'm dungeon grinding today and I'll stream it. I like stream to talk to people first and game secondary. That's how I've always done it, which means leveling is extremely slow. And I'll be honest with you guys, I'm like you. I'm probably like most of you guys, is when it comes to leveling, I want a good session of leveling, a good few hours going. I want to be in underpants. I want to crack on some Netflix or some YouTube, and I just want to veg out and get my leveling done and focus on it. And I really enjoy that. That's like a really fun part of gaming, is being totally into your gaming, that's what you want to do. So for the leveling of Classic, I don't really want to stream this. I actually want to do other things. And not only that, when it comes to the stream, I do like to mix games up. I'm a video game lover above a World of Warcraft game lover, which means when I went through like 5 years, as I'm sure many of you have or are doing right now, where I just exclusively played World of Warcraft, and a ton of wonderful games just passed me by. And I don't want to repeat that either. So I like to vary up on the stream and play different games quite a lot. BlizzCon is coming up. I gotta say how amazed I was with how cool you guys were about that top 5, which was had very silly elements to it while still being, you know, quite serious. Those are things I was genuinely like, I really care about these things. There's some details I'd like to work out on that. Certainly the gearing process. There's a lot of people are focused on the gearing side of it, but I didn't explain it particularly well because a lot of the ideas I had for extra stuff to add to gear weren't necessarily power increases. And there's certainly a lot of the player base who believes gear is just power, which I don't agree with. I don't think it has to be that hard and fast. I genuinely believe that you can have extra elements of gear that aren't necessarily just power gain. And I think that's kind of where we got lost along the way, is that all gear just became power gain. And we ended up with ridiculous numbers very, very quickly. Instead of thinking like, is this fun? Is having like more haste, more crit fun? Like, is that just fun in and of itself? Because I don't believe it is. I don't believe that is fun. Overall power gain, sure, I expect my character to advance. I'm not stupid. However, there's other elements to gear and utility and interesting mechanics that can work in certain areas of the game, which is something I proposed in that top 5, which aren't necessarily power gains. There's no reason you can't say, what are the biggest issues that this character has in an outdoor world environment? So we look at a Death Knight. They might say things like, traveling between mobs very quickly is awkward because we don't have great run speed, certainly pre-flying and things like that, so I have to stop and mount up. Maybe your gear affects your death grip in some way, so you can use it more like a harpoon. It flips it around, you know, just things like that. I'm just spitballing ideas that aren't necessarily power gains, but are fun to use. Give you some interesting elements. And then you have multiple, so let's say your gloves did that. Your gloves reverse your death grip into a different way, or maybe they allow you to tag mobs and do things like that. But there's like 4 different sets of gloves that do different things. So if that's not an issue for you, you can wear different gloves. And then you get to mix and match your gear to suit you in that environment without actually being power gains. They're just things that are fun to use in that environment. And certainly when you look at things that are very themed, like Mechagon and Nazjatar, is you can then theme what these characters do or what this gear does around the theme of the zone. That's where I led into the idea of the transmogs that fit with it very well and also give you this utility that makes you much better in that zone. And you get a sense of character progression that isn't just power. In fact, it increases your ability to complete the zone. So if I was looking at Nazjatar, for example, a lot of the stuff in Nazjatar is about finding, say, seeds to plant gardens and things like that. And there's no reason that ultimately over time you can't progress that in some way so it becomes easier and easier, and you find ways of being able to farm this more effectively, and you just have all these modifications to like, okay, I found this same seedling like 12 times, or this rock pick. Now I can craft my own, or I can just buy my own, or I can give them in and turn them in and do things like that. So that over time, as your reputation grows, you're exceeding into that. And perhaps you simply have gear that has the ability to mine that rock. So you don't need to find the pickup all the time that goes into your bags and things like that. Just things that advance your character in that zone without necessarily being power gains. With BlizzCon coming up, obviously I've not heard back on whether I can get an interview with any of the Blizz devs. I mean, there's a chance that video kind of turned them away, like he's taking the piss. But honestly, there's nothing offensive in that video. Obviously, I did do the Ian mask, but Ian is the face of the company. He's the face of the communications that come out of there, and I'm pretty sure he's intelligent enough to understand that it's not personal against him. It's more in fact, it was a celebratory. The whole point of that scene is that he will be rolling in order to deliver fantastic news. There was nothing derogatory about it, and it was a little bit funny. So I'm pretty sure he's aware of that, but I haven't heard back. So fingers crossed I will get to talk to... I mean, I'll get to talk to somebody anyway, because I'll just be there, so I'll get to speak to people. But that's my hopes and prayers with that. So as it goes for World of Warcraft right now, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm in this weird space where I want to play one game, but it requires a huge amount of my time, which is classic World of Warcraft. And I'd like to just bury my time into that, while simultaneously having to maintain this retail World of Warcraft element and making that work while trying to balance the other things as we keep the stream going and move into BlizzCon and prepare some of these bigger videos like I've been working on tonight. So that's how it stands for me for World of Warcraft right now. I know many of you are in different scenarios and looking for advice. If you can leave me anything, I will do my best to help you as best I can. But that is exactly where we are with World of Warcraft right now. So I guess the main questions are, yes, I'm still playing retail. I'm raiding on a Wednesday. I still love World of Warcraft Classic. I'm still having an absolute blast with that, but I'm also doing it at my own pace, which has been thoroughly enjoyable. Really, really fun to do that. And with BlizzCon coming up, I have fingers crossed to find out as much information as I can, but I can't confirm anything with that. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I should have a bigger video out for you in the next 24 hours-ish. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.